After several ones, the Puma 1 is done. Its replacement, the Puma Ultra 1.1, which I have inside this box, and as you can see, it's quite a departure from the Puma 1 line. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that it has almost nothing in common. And for those that are familiar with the history of Puma football boots, these will probably remind you a lot more of the Evo Speed line from back in the day. Unlike what we've seen from the Puma brand over the last several years, the Puma Ultra is a true speed boot. They also retail for $200, making these the least expensive of the top-end speed boot options within the three big brands. The next closest boot in terms of price would be the $225 Adidas X Ghosted 0.1, where all of your other options retail for $250 or more. So from a value for money perspective, these have a lot going for them. The question is, are they as good as the competition while also being cheaper? That's exactly the question that I want to answer. Are these the ones? No, they're the Puma Ultras. That will be the final Puma 1 joke, I promise. So not only are we going to talk about how these compare to the competition, I'm also going to go over all of the technical details because it's pretty interesting in terms of what they've done, although it is also pretty similar to another boot that's currently available. That's a lot more expensive. So if you want to learn more about these, including how they fit and feel on feet, ultimately concluding whether or not this is the next speed boot that you should have on your wish list, please stick around and watch the entire video. And if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That's going to take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $200 retail price. Also, if you guys do end up enjoying this video and perhaps would like to see some direct comparison videos with the Puma Ultras, don't forget to support this one with a like and leave your suggestions down below. And if you're new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on weekly content on everything football boots, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Seriously though, as I'm making this video, the channel has 666,000 subscribers, which is a little bit weird for me, so let's try to get past this. Now, as for the boots themselves, there's one element that is visually distinctive about the Puma Ultra, and that is the upper. That kind of has this unusual streaking pattern running the length of the boot, but if you look really closely, the intricacy and detail in this textile upper is extremely impressive. And it's also a little bit unusual in that a lot of the upper, aside from the toe box and forefoot area, is left uncoated. It's just straight up yarn on the surface, which is kind of backwards in comparison to what we've seen from most textile or knitted uppers up until this point. But this is totally different than anything that we've seen before. It's not Nike Flyknit, it's not Adidas Prime Knit, and it doesn't really compare to the Evo Knit upper that we have on the Puma Future that's available right now. Instead, this upper is what they're calling Matrix Evo. You can see the logo kind of hiding in between the laces. It's a textile-based material that's made up of a variety of different coated yarns. So the fact that the yarns are coated is part of the reason why they didn't need to add an extra coating on the surface. And the goal of this material is not only just to give you the best of everything, but also to make one single layer of material account for pretty much everything you need from the upper of a football boot. So there's three different types of yarns here. You have a polyester yarn, which makes up the majority of the upper. That's there to give you your softness and sock-like sensation. Then you have carbon yarns, which, as carbon would suggest, is super lightweight. So they have that in the places to, I guess, take as much weight out of the boot as possible. And then you have what's called aramid fibers, which are a structural type of yarn, if you will, that are added to areas of the upper that require a little bit more structure for the sake of lockdown and responsiveness. You're gonna find this mainly in the lateral side of the boot, all coming together to create one single piece of material that is super thin, very flexible, extremely lightweight, and remarkably responsive. And I can't stress the single layer part enough, because what you see on the outside is exactly what's going on, and then internally it's a little bit difficult for me to show you guys, but it's a super thin layer of microfiber that's so thin it's actually see-through. You can see the structure of the yarn pattern itself, and there is a little bit of additional microfiber with a slight amount of padding through the forefoot and toe box area, but for the most part, this is as close to a single piece of material for an upper that we've really ever seen from a pair of football boots, which is also part of the reason why the boots are so light. As far as touch and feel is concerned, when you put the boots on, it's got really good flexibility to it. I don't want to say that the upper feels soft, because it really doesn't have much in the way of padding other than the little bit that they put in the forefoot and toe box area. But in general, it moves really nicely with your feet and is pretty comfortable out of the box. And then in terms of touch on the ball, because it is so thin, it really does actually remind me a lot of the Flyknit upper currently found on the current Mercurial Vapor 13 and Superfly 7 Elite. Maybe a little bit thinner than that, but for the most part, that would be the closest comparison. So definitely a top-notch barefoot feel, which I think is what most people would be looking for. And then as far as surface texture is concerned, there's a significant amount of texture from the actual textile pattern itself. So it's a little bit more rough than you might expect. And you can definitely tell that the yarns are ever so slightly coated, because despite looking fully exposed like it would be slippery, there's a good amount of grittiness and just this soft amount of grip to it, to where in terms of grip on the ball, as far as knitted and textile uppers go, this actually has a little bit more of a grippier feel than I was personally expecting. And then you will find kind of around the edges of the forefoot and toe box area as a grip element, as well as I'm assuming a durability element, even though they didn't talk about that in the press release. It does have what they call Grip Control Pro, which is basically just a top layer of slightly grippier material that does kind of fade off a little bit as you wear the boots in. But in general, in terms of additional grip on the ball from something classified as a speed boot, these definitely have more grip than most of the competition. You'll also notice that the Puma Ultra does feature a one-piece upper construction where they've fused a more traditional kind of elasticated knit material across the top of the foot. It does also have a central lacing system, and the way that those laces attach to the upper is by way of lace loops that are done in a very, I guess, high-tech, pretty cool, but also maybe overcomplicated way. The design of the boot in terms of the lacing system with the lace loops reminds me a lot of the Adidas X16 and 17.1. Those had nylon lace loops, which were extremely bulky, and I've never really been a fan of lace loops in general. But the way Puma have done it here on the Ultra is by way of these very thin yarns. So you'll notice that there's probably 30 to 40 strands that make up each individual lace loop that's kind of fully integrated into the upper. There's no added bulk internally for the most part, and it allows the laces to be attached to the upper with, I guess, as little extra material as possible if they wanted to do the whole lace loop thing. You could make the argument, and I would make this argument, that they would have been better off just doing a dual lace hole setup like a lot of boots with the one-piece upper have. I think that maybe would have been a little bit more reliable, but I'm not sure if that was possible given the textile material that this upper is actually made out of. So I can't really comment on whether or not this was necessary, but if it wasn't, it seems a little bit overcomplicated, and my only concern in terms of long-term durability is that should you get stepped on, because these are just individual yarns, could that possibly tear and you would end up losing a lacing position? Again, way too early to say, but it is a long-term concern for me. Either way, it feels really good. It allows you to pull and give you some pretty nice tension when the boots are on feet. It's just kind of an unusual design choice. Moving to the rear of the boot, you'll find that it does feature a low-cut design, which makes sense for a speed boot trying to be as light as possible. You will notice that the sides of the boot as well as the back seem to come up a little bit higher than normal, but in general, I didn't find it to feel unusual or uncomfortable in any way. Has a little bit of a V-cut as well. I think mainly just for the sake of looks, you don't feel that either. And then like a lot of other knitted football boots, it does have this elasticated knit kind of lining the edges of the ankle as well as the back of the heel, giving you somewhat of a comfort edge, a little bit of an extended pull tab here at the back. And then internally, you'll find that it has this really soft synthetic suede or microfiber type material, plenty of extra padding despite the boots being so light. So in terms of fit and heel lockdown as well as overall comfort, I have no complaints there. And then the insole is fully removable. I'll give you guys a quick look at that. And it features a liner material that has this soft grip to it. It's what they call their nano grip technology. As you can see, feels really, really nice. Just a subtle amount of grip. And then it's just made from a single layer of this white foam, which is nothing spectacular, but it is super lightweight, which again was part of the goal of the Puma Ultra. Moving to the base, you'll find what Puma is calling their new Speed Unit sole plate and stud pattern, where you'll find that it's kind of a combination of what we've seen from Puma in the past, as well as a little bit of inspiration from Nike and Adidas speed boots, which is never a bad thing. It does feature an external plastic heel counter attached directly to the sole plate, which is entirely made out of one piece. Although in the press release, they do mention that this is somewhat of a split sole. You can see that there is a color change here, and the black part of the sole plate is a wearable finish, by the way, but I don't see that there's a physical split or change up in materials here. It doesn't really feel like it either. Basically, the part that's black you're gonna find is super flexible, and then the parts that are orange, with obviously all of this rigidity added through the midfoot and heel, is more rigid, like you'd expect a speed boot to feel. In general, I would say that these are definitely more flexible in comparison to Mercurials though, and feel a lot more like the speed frames that we've seen from the Adidas brand, but overall really nice. No major complaints here. It's a nice lightweight base that feels pretty solid on feet. And then as far as the stud pattern is concerned, you will notice the FGAG branding on the sole plate. This is an FGAG stud pattern according to Puma, and you'll find that it features mostly bladed studs through the heel as well as the base of the forefoot, and then at the front part in the black area you'll find these chevron based studs. So the layout of the stud pattern itself is very reminiscent of the Adidas brand, but the shape of the studs is very reminiscent to that of the current Mercurial. It looks like all of the latest speed boots are going towards these arrow-shaped or chevron-shaped studs, and that's because it just allows for plenty of grip. They're not necessarily going to make you faster, but in terms of just outright bite when digging into the ground, this definitely feels like an improvement over what we currently have with the Puma Future, as well as what we've seen previously with the Puma 1. Which brings us to the weight of the Puma Ultra, which is particularly interesting because these are ridiculously lightweight. In the early days of speed boots, even though they weren't very comfortable at the time, what drew a lot of people to that category were that the boots were so much lighter than everything else. Since then, football boots across the board have gotten very light, and especially with the modern speed boot category, I feel like there's been less and less emphasis on making the boots lighter. People just kind of accept that all football boots are light, but Puma have decided to really separate themselves in this particular area with the Puma Ultra because it is way lighter than its competition. In a size 9.5 US, you can see that the boots weigh in at 5.8 ounces, the equivalent of 165 grams, which puts this pretty much at the exact same weight as the OG 2010 F50 Adizero in the synthetic upper variation. So in comparison to that, these are just as lightweight, but feel way more solid, are way more comfortable, and quite frankly, are just way better football boots. And if we're comparing this to a current top-end model, like the Nike Mercurial Vapor 13 Elite, these are roughly 40 to 50 grams lighter, which might not seem like a lot, but that's pretty significant, and they do feel noticeably lighter both in hand as well as on feet. So as you can see, I've swapped out the stock orange laces, which look fine. The boots are mostly orange, for some black reflective SR4U replacement laces, which I think really show off the detail of the actual textile upper, as well as just accent with the little black bits that you find throughout the boot. It's a great way of changing up the style of your boots in a very inexpensive way. If you're interested in some for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen as well as a link down below in the description. So if you're interested in some for yourself, be sure to go ahead and check that out. On feet, the Puma Ultras feel really good. What I like about this upper especially is it feels very thin. It has this kind of sensation of being quite raw because it is really just one single layer of material, but they also added a liner on the inside that's super soft against your foot. The little bit of padding through the toe box area also feels really nice. So you get this good combination of this kind of hardcore, super thin speed boot, but at the same time, they're comfortable, they move nicely with your feet. The sole plate has a really nice feel underfoot as well and isn't overly stiff in any way. It's just a really nice feeling boot on feet and quite a bit different than anything we've ever seen from the Puma brand. So overall, pretty positive there. My one criticism would be in regards to the overall shape, where I think that there's maybe a little bit too much volume through the toe box and forefoot area, and you can see when you bend your foot, you do get a little bit of extra creasing that otherwise wouldn't be as significant if the boots did cut down on the volume slightly, but if you had a wider foot or a higher volume foot, that's definitely not going to be a huge issue for you. So that's something that's going to vary from person to person, but as a whole, really happy with how these fit and feel. In terms of overall width, because of the base shape as well as the central lacing system, these are definitely going to be wide enough for almost anybody. I'm not going to say that they are super wide, and you're not really going to get a ton of stretch out of this upper because of the amount of structure that they've incorporated into it. But if you're too wide to fit into Mercurials, you will definitely fit into the Puma Ultras. It's got a shape that will definitely work for almost any foot type. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you're looking to order some for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, is the Puma Ultra 1.1 worth the $200 price tag? And the answer to that question is an easy yes for me. The boots are super lightweight. The upper is a very impressive technical achievement that not only feels good, but also performs the part. I think that the sole plate and stud pattern is one of the better ones that I've ever tried from the Puma brand. And really my only complaint is in regards to the overall shape of the boot, where I think they could have lowered the volume slightly and made them fit a little bit tighter. But at the same time, I think people with slightly wider feet will actually appreciate the overall shape that Puma has gone for here. Not to mention, the boots only retail for $200, less than all of its competition, but performing to definitely the same overall standard. If I had to compare this in terms of peak performance characteristics to something like the Mercurial Vapor 13 Elite, while those aren't as light, I still think that they are objectively a little bit better, but these definitely come really close. And depending on what you value in a speed boot, comfort and lightweight over maybe tightness and responsiveness, you'll probably prefer the Puma Ultra over the Mercurial Vapor. At least I know I'd prefer these over the Vapors. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, you can click the first link down below. That's going to take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $200 retail price. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you. If you aren't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.